The ancient city of Viridia sighed under the weight of perpetual twilight, and the heavier burden of the gray regime music, once its vibrant soul, was now deemed frivolous, even dangerous. In a crumbling apartment overlooking the silent, cobbled square, lived Isolde. Her fingers, long and graceful like the necks of forgotten swans, rarely touched the polished wood of her beloved violin anymore. Dust settled on its case, a silent companion to her profound solitude. She moved through the dim rooms, like a ghost, the vibrant melodies that once danced in her head now muted whispers, trapped behind lips pressed thin with resignation. The absence of song was a physical ache, a hollow space beneath her ribs where joy used to reside. Outside, the only sounds were the heavy tread of patrol boots and the mournful wind whistling through empty archways. One rain-lashed evening, a faint, hesitant tapping broke the silence of Isolde's sanctuary. Opening her door a cautious crack, she found Tomas, the small, serious boy from the apartment below, shivering on the landing. Water dripped from his dark hair. "My mother, she's ill," he stammered, his voice barely audible above the storm. "The fever makes her cry out. Is there any music left? Something quiet?" His large, earnest eyes held a desperate plea that pierced Isolde's numbness. She saw not just a child, but a reflection of the city's stolen harmony. Without a word, she stepped aside, gesturing him into the warm, amber glow of her lamplit room. A sanctuary against the world's harshness. Weeks passed, and Tomas became a quiet fixture in Isolde's shadowed world. He would sit, utterly still, on a worn velvet cushion while she, with a reverence that bordered on prayer, lifted the violin from its case. She never played the old, forbidden symphonies. Instead, she played the music inside her, the melodies composed in the secret chambers of her heart. During the long, silent years, they were songs of the wind through autumn leaves, of starlight on still water, of a mother's lullaby. Half remembered the notes, pure and liquid silver, flowed from her violin, weaving a fragile tapestry of sound that filled the small room, washing over Tomas like a healing balm. His tense shoulders relaxed, a fragile peace settled on his face. Isolde began to write these secret melodies down late into the night. By the flickering candle, she transcribed the swirling patterns in her mind onto precious, fragile sheets of paper. Each note was a tiny act of defiance, a whispered promise that beauty could not be entirely extinguished. She showed Tomas the symbols, explaining the language of the staves and clefs, her voice a soft murmur in the quiet. "This," she whispered, tracing a delicate phrase with her fingertip, "is the sound of the first snowflake landing, and this is the sigh the old oak tree makes at dusk." He listened, absorbing the magic, understanding that these pages held captured dreams. One harsh afternoon, the heavy, unmistakable sound of regime boots echoed too loudly on the staircase, stopping right outside Isolde's door. A cold dread seized her heart. Rough pounding shook the wood. They entered without ceremony, their gray uniforms sucking the warmth from the room. Their leader, a man with eyes like flint, scanned the space, his gaze landing immediately on the open violin case and the stack of manuscript paper beside it. "Contraband," he declared flatly, his voice devoid of feeling. Isolde stood frozen, a silent scream trapped in her throat, as the officer callously gathered every precious sheet, the labor of her soul, crumpling them in his gloved hand. Tomas, hidden behind a heavy curtain, watched in horror, tears streaming silently down his cheeks. The soldiers left as abruptly as they came, taking the physical manifestation of Isolde's spirit with them. The silence that followed was crushing, heavier than before. Isolde sank onto her chair, staring at the empty space where her music had lived. The light seemed to dim further in the room. She didn't weep. Her grief was too vast, too deep for tears. It was the desolation of a final, irrevocable loss. She gently placed the violin back into its case, the click of the latch sounding like the sealing of a tomb. The unheard songs were now truly silenced, their fragile vessels turned to ash in some cold regime furnace far away. Time flowed on, sluggish and gray. Isolde retreated further into herself, a silent figure glimpsed occasionally at her window. Tomas grew taller, quieter, But the music Isolde had poured into him hadn't died years later. Long after the Grey regime had crumbled like rotten wood and tentative melodies began to tentatively fill Viridia's streets once more, a young man stood on a makeshift stage in the bustling main square. Tomas lifted his own violin to his chin. He closed his eyes, and from his strings poured forth a melody of breathtaking tenderness and sorrow. A euro, the sound of the first snowflake, the sigh of the old oak at dusk, the liquid silver of starlight on water. It was a song of profound loss and quiet, enduring beauty. The crowd fell utterly silent, captivated, many feeling an inexplicable pang of recognition deep within. They didn't know the song's name, or the woman who had composed it. Unheard in the shadows but high above, in her familiar window, Isolde listened. A single tear traced a path down her weathered cheek, not of sorrow, but of profound release. Her song, carried on the heart of the boy she had saved, had finally found its voice. It soared over the rooftops, a testament to the enduring power of beauty shared, even in silence, even in secret, finally heard by the city. It was always meant to heal, and Tomas, playing with his eyes closed, knew she was listening, and in his heart he played only for her.